that money does not incur interest. So you have basically a month to come up with that 1,085, which you shouldn't be coming up with because you're only spending money that you should already have to pay this $1,089 on the 17th. Yo, what's goody, what's goody, Latrell in a hoodie. Welcome to another episode of the Brother Next Door podcast where we talk about finance, personal development, and skills to get you further in life, the actionable steps, and my own personal experiences. In this episode, we're talking about credit cards. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning 101 basic credit card fundamentals. So, if you've been having a credit card, if you want more clarity, this episode's for you. If you never had a credit card before, this episode's for you. But if you already have experience, you already know what you're doing, keep it pushing. This is for people. This is really for people who really need more clarity on what a credit card is and how a credit card works, and for people who have never had credit cards before. So what we are going to go through is what a credit card is, right? We're going to also go through all the terms that are related to credit cards, and then I'm going to walk you through one of my personal statements with PenFed, as well as give you a example on a February calendar to visually show you what it looks like on a month to month basis. That way, you guys get the best idea of how credit cards work. Because it can be very confusing. I get it. But once you understand these terms, once you understand the due date, statement closing date, all that good stuff, you will be a lot better off and not risk, paying a whole bunch in fees and late fees and interest. So let's get right into it. What is a credit card? Understand a credit card is just a revolving line of credit. So revolving, what does that mean? All that means is there's no set amount of payments that you are going to make, like a car loan, right? 30 years, not or well, 30 years. We're probably gonna get up to that point at this rate. Usually they're around, 5, 6. Now they're at like 7 years, which is insane. But okay, I'm gonna be paying for this car for usually about 4 or 5 years. These are the payments. Okay, here it is. Or for a home loan, 15 year or 30 year. Okay, I know for 15 years or 30 years I'm going to be paying around this amount, not including taxes and all that other stuff that comes into play. But I'll be paying for 30 years, right? That's not the same with the credit card. With the credit card, you can have a credit card for 6 months or you can have a credit card for 60 years, right? It's just a matter of you being on time, paying on time, and not going into delinquency, or you deciding to close it for whatever reason that may be. But that is why it is revolving. It's because the interest rate can change. The payment you make every month can change because you're putting a different amount on the credit card. All those different variables can change. And so that's why it is revolving. So let's go right into the terms. So you have interest rate. That's the biggest one. What's interest rate? This is what you are paying the bank for borrowing your money. But there's a way you can get around that. I've had credit cards for about 5 years now. Haven't paid interest, right? Why? Because I know how to pay before the due date and pay in full before the due date. And I'm gonna tell you how to get that done and get that taken care of in this episode. No matter how much, whether you go all the way to the extreme and max it out, don't do that. But if you go all the way, as long as you pay that sucker all the way off by the due date, you don't have to worry about interest. And we're going to go into that later on in the video. Interest rate is just the amount you are paying the bank for using their money. Billing cycle. So this is the time frame in which you are using the card, right? So the billing cycle, so from January 1st to January 30th is your billing cycle. For me, for PenFed, it is 31 days. And so for 31 days, I'm using the card. After those 31 days, they're going to send me a statement, whether it's through email or whether it's actually a paper statement. That's up to you, between you and the bank. For me, I choose to just get it through the email. It's a lot simpler. But they're going to send you that statement saying, hey, this is what you spent between January 1st all the way to January 31st. this is what you owe us. That is the billing cycle. Credit limit. This is the amount the bank is willing to let you spend on that card. You cannot spend over that. You can spend under that, which you should, right? Your goal isn't to max it out. Your goal isn't to, if they give you 5,000 and that's your credit limit, it's not okay. Let me go and spend 5,000. Don't do that. That's just the amount that they have allotted to you for you to use on this card. If you reach that amount, then you need to pay that off before you can use the card again. That is the credit limit, not the credit goal. That's the credit limit. Credit card balance. This is the amount that you owe currently on that credit card. And so if you're, spending money going shopping and you look at your, app and it says your credit card balance is blank, that is how much you owe currently on that credit card. Next, statement balance. Now, this is a little different. So, the statement balance is how much you owe based off your last statement. So, that piece of paper that came in the mail, or that email that you got, or that PDF that's on the app. And so, with that, whatever that amount is on there, which I'm gonna show you mine later on in the video, whatever that amount is, that is how much you owe based off the last statement period. That's not your current balance because now you're in a whole new month. You're spending money again, right? So that's not your current balance, but that's how that statement balance is how much you owe based off the previous month's statement. Remember that difference. And then your credit score. So credit cards, obviously, or if you don't know, credit cards affect your credit score. Understand a credit score is just basically what creditors or banks use, whether you're getting a house, whether you're getting a car, doesn't matter. They're going to use that loosely. They're more so going to use whether you're credit worthy or not. But that's just a quick look, quick glance. Hey, you got a 750. Okay, cool. We could probably do something with that. Now let's look at your credit report. But credit score, all that's just saying is how credit worthy are you to get money from a bank. And so, how does a credit card work? Listen closely. Listen closely. So, a credit card, all that, because I've seen some crazy videos about people talking about, oh, I just thought it was free money. It's not free money, fam. So, let me tell you how it works out and also why I use credit cards. So you get the plastic card, right? Or in some case, a metal card if you like that. You get the plastic card. Now the bank says, hey, we're going to set aside, in my case, $9,000 for you to use on this card, right? And so they set aside $9,000 for me. I can use that 9,000 however which way I want to. I could even take that $9,000 out as cash if I wanted to. It's higher interest. We'll get to that later. But they're saying, hey, here's $9,000. I take my credit card. I take my piece of plastic. I go to the Polo store. You see, I got the Polo on. I go to the Polo store. I spend 4,000, right? So now that we subtract that 4,000 from the 9,000, right? So now I'm at $5,000, right? And so now I only have $5,000 to spend on my credit card. Now, if I go throughout the rest of the month and spend all that, now I have to pay back that $9,000 before I can use that credit card again. It's that simple. Now, understand when I go into Polo and pay for those Polo clothes, right? I don't know why I'm sponsoring them. I'm not. Whatever. Let's keep it pushing. I pay for these clothes. That is the bank paying Polo. Get this. That's the bank paying Polo for the goods that I received. It's basically a mini loan. The bank paid Polo for the clothes. Now I have to pay the bank back at the next due date. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So it's not just free money out of nowhere. No, the bank is paying Polo for the clothes that you got or the jewelry you got or the car whatever, the rent you're paying your credit card on, the bank is paying them. Now you owe the bank for what they paid the merchant, right? And so once the end of the month comes around and they send you that statement, they say, "Hey, Latrell, you spent a bag at Polo. Run me my money back." And now you have a certain period of time to pay that money back. You don't have to pay it on the statement closing date, but you do have to pay that money back eventually. And so let's get into part two, where we talk about my statement. So this is my real statement from February or January. And so let's get right into it. And so as you can see, my new balance, right? My statement balance, it says new, but that's just the statement balance, is 1,085. The minimum payment due. Family, please pay attention. The minimum payment usually is going to be higher, or minimum payment usually going to be lower than new than the balance amount, unless it's under that threshold. For some banks like PenFed, it's 22. Discover, my Discover card is 30. So if you spend less than 30, then you just need to pay the whole thing off, right? And so it's usually going to be, if it's over that threshold of the minimum payment due, then they'll just leave it at the minimum payment. If it's less than, then you're going to have to pay the whole amount. Hopefully that makes sense. Next, so understand, if I only made the minimum payment on the 17th of February, then I would still have to account for $1,063. That money doesn't just go away because it's not in the minimum payment. Now that Now that's going to get rolled over into the next month. As you can see, payment information. It tells you, excuse me, it gives you all the information right here. If I decide to only make the minimum payment, it would take me 14 years to pay that $1,000 off. And I'd end up actually paying $2,742 on what should have been only $1,085. Now, if I paid 39, it only take me 3 years. It'll cost me $1,413, so on and so forth. But as you can see, they're giving you an example of what you end up paying if you only made the minimum payment. Life happens. It's like, hey, bro, I was gonna have it, but then I lost my job, whatever. That's why they give you these minimum payments. That way, it's really why they do this so you can pay interest. But life happens. If you got to make the minimum payment, do what you got to do, but pay it off as fast as possible. Now let's go into these terms we talked about earlier. Statement closing date. Remember we was talking about January 1st to 31st? With my real life example, my closing date was January 20th. So that was the last date I was spending money before they decided, hey, we're going to send you, that's the last date. So from December 21st all the way to January 20th, this is what you owe, which is 1,085. Statement or credit limit. So this is the amount of money they set aside for me, which is $9,000, right? Available credit. This is 7,914. How'd you get that? Simple math. You take that 9,000, you subtract about the 1,085, 89, and then sometimes there will be pending pending payments, and so they'll subtract that as well from your available credit. So that's why there may be a discrepancy between the credit limit and the balance on your credit card. So take that into consideration as well. And then cash credit limit, which is 9,000. So this is rare. I don't have any other credit card that does this. So they're saying I could withdraw the whole $9,000 cash. With other cards is usually a lot less than the total credit limit. But PenFed's like, hey, bro, if you want to withdraw the whole 9,000, go and withdraw the whole 9,000 cash. Use it how you want it. But understand, it usually comes at a higher APR or interest rate. Previous balance $116. I made $1,400 in payments. Other credits $51. That's stuff that I so if you bought something from the store and then you returned it, they gave you money. That's where those credits come from. Or if you have a card that allows for you to pay with credit card points, then that's where those credits will come from as well. And then purchases $2,420 for the month of January. That's why the new balance is now 1,085. And so let's go over here. As you can see, fees charged, interest paid, zero, zero dinero. I have paid zero in interest and zero in fees for the beginning of 2025, and I plan on keeping it that way until the end of 2025. So as you can see, my APRs, they're actually the same, which is surprising. So cash advance and purchases are the same. PenFed low key. PenFed low key, they doing their thing because normal APRs is usually 29% or higher with credit cards, but they got theirs at 17.99%. But we don't pay those. We don't pay those anyway. So you shouldn't even be worried about what the APR percentages are on credit cards because you should be paying in full or not buying the thing at all. So as you can see right here, the remaining balance is 1,085. I don't know why I keep saying this number over and over to y'all. But that's the remaining balance. As you can see, there's no interest charged on that, and it is not and there's nothing subject to interest. As you can see, these are the points I get for my credit cards. We'll go into that on another video. This is basic. Pause, you look at it if you want to. We're not going to talk about that, but I just want to give you the basics. We'll talk about points and arbitrage and all that other crap later. But I want to get you understanding how credit cards work. So here we go. We're going to look at the map. This is really what's going to make it clear if it hasn't been cleared up already. I had to look at I had to look at a calendar to fully understand this concept because it can be kind of confusing, especially with all the terms involved. And so here we go with the February. So with February, right? Well, let's back up to January. As you can see at the top, excuse my messy handwriting, but my January closing date was January 20th, right? So that means on the 20th, and it's color coded for y'all. That's when it closed. Between January 21st and 24th, they sent me my statement. The statement said, "Hey, you owe $1,085," as you can see on the 17th, and that's when that money is due. So between the closing date and the due date, February 17th, that money does not incur interest. That money does not incur interest. So you have basically a month to come up with that 1,085, which you shouldn't be coming up with because you're only spending money that you should already have to pay this $1,089 on the 17th. So that's the closing date. Immediately the next day, the next statement, period starts, or the billing cycle. So billing cycle, statement period, interchangeable. The 21st is when the next one started in blue. So from the 21st all the way to the 20th of February is my next billing cycle. Once this billing cycle is over, within 3, 4, 5 days, they're going to send me another statement saying this is how much you owe based off what you spent for majority of February, and I will have to pay that in March, so on and so forth. Now, where does the interest come into play? Remember how I was saying there was a minimum payment and then there was the total balance. So, if I said on January 17th or February 17th, hey, I ain't got it or I don't want to pay it, I'm going to pay the minimum payment, right? I'm going to pay, what was it, 30? Minimum was $22. So we're going to say, hey, I'm going to pay the minimum $22 and forget about it, right? I'm just going to forget about it. And so if I pay that minimum $22, then I'm still responsible for the $1,063. And so what that means now, that's going to carry over into February's statement. So I'm gonna have that 1,063 plus whatever I spend in February. That's going to be on that new statement that I receive in March. Or that's going to be the new statement that I receive in February. My bad. So I'm gonna owe the 1,063 plus whatever I spent in February, and then I hit the closing date on the 20th. Now that's closed. So whatever I owe prior to February plus what I spent during February is what's going to be on that new statement and what I'm going to owe. And now I'm going to have interest on that 1,063. Hopefully that's making sense. So now there's $1,063 in my case collecting 17.99% interest because I decided not to pay in full. That's why it's important that you pay in full every single month. That way you don't accrue interest. So that's the basics. I'm gonna keep it at that. I'm not going to go, spend 30 minutes on this episode. It's a one-on-one episode. And so I just want to keep it short, sweet, to the point. That way you guys fully understand how credit cards work and you guys don't end up paying crazy amounts in interest for no reason just because you simply didn't understand the concept. This is going to be a series. I'm going to do another video or two on this, on just credit cards. That way you guys can fully understand in entirety how credit cards work. I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes. If you do, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I will see y'all in the next episode. Peace.